Hey, Callie here from CRK Training. If you have been following my videos for the past few weeks, you've noticed we've been talking about this idea that every rider is a trainer. And we've been also looking at the big picture of horsemanship. So the different pieces that go into riding beyond just our physical skills of balance and how we sit on the horse. So if you haven't watched those last two videos, it would actually be great if you want to go back and watch them first, because what we're going to talk about today, it kind of ties into that information that we covered before. So we were looking at kind of this, every rider's a trainer, this big picture, working through riding challenges and how there can be a lot of different factors that come into, working through a problem. But even when we know what could cause a problem, we've got to figure out what is causing the problem. And then, even when we know what we need to do to fix it, actually creating a change can be kind of difficult. So we're coming up on the new year, and it's a time of year where a lot of people are thinking about change because we're thinking about New Year, New Year's resolutions, goal setting. But change can actually be really hard to actually make that change and make a lasting change. And if you look at like the empty gyms and the empty health food aisles by probably about February, it's clear that making a lasting change can be pretty tough. So what makes the difference between just setting a goal or coming up with a resolution and actually following through, getting it done, and seeing that real progress with your horse or seeing that real improvement in your riding? That's what I want to talk about today. So this is an area that I've always been really interested in, and lately I've been focusing on it even more. And I was having a discussion with a friend of mine who's a clinical psychologist, and she studies the science of change. And she was talking about how there's more than just the one step that people often think about, especially around this time of year. So right now, we're all thinking about goals and we're thinking about New Year's resolutions. But without these other steps to kind of this, the process of reaching a goal, it's really hard to do what you need to do and to make those changes to reach the goal or to find progress. And those are what I want to talk about today. There's three in particular that I want to cover. But first, let's make a little distinction between a goal and a resolution. So a resolution is saying that you want to do something or you want to not do something. So for riding, it would be like, I want to ride more. A goal is having an outcome that you're striving for. So a goal would be, I want to be able to canter confidently on a 20-meter circle. And riding more might be part of what you do to get to that goal. That's a little bit of a distinction between the two. So when we're thinking about either keeping up with our resolution or attaining a goal, the three other things that we've got to think about, three, not four, the three things we need to think about are the story that we have around that, focus, and then developing a plan. So for the first one, story, what you tell yourself is really important. So kind of the why behind what you're doing. An easy example is if you think about this idea of riding more. If you tend to say to yourself, I'm really busy, I don't have any time to do the things that I love to do, like riding, it's not going to support your intention of wanting to ride more. But if you just change that a little bit and instead you say, my life is really full, but I always have time for the things that mean the most to me and that fill me up, like my riding, because then it rejuvenates me and everything else, all my other activities become more productive. That's something that's going to make a much bigger difference in supporting you as you want to make that change and make more time for riding in your life or spending time with your horse. Now, the second one, which is focus. So there's a kind of rule that's actually popular in business and economics, but it applies really well to our riding as well. And it's the 80-20 rule. The percentages themselves are not that important, but it's the idea that it's often the smaller part of something that kind of is responsible for the biggest outcome. or that makes the biggest difference. So the way that I think about applying this to riding is when we kind of go back to that big picture idea, when we can start to narrow down and just focus on finding that one thing that's going to make the biggest difference in all of the other areas and make the biggest difference in helping to solve our problem or our challenge, that's what we want to focus on instead of trying to do everything at once. So we want to focus in order to make a change. And then the last thing is planning. So even if you have your story and you have your focus, you've got to actually do something to see results. And planning is just figuring out, what are the habits that you need to create, and then what are you going to do to actually make them happen. So why am I talking about this now after we've just kind of been looking at this, every rider is a trainer, and we've got all these different things that are important to consider when we're thinking about a riding problem or a behavior problem with our horse. We can start to use these frameworks to add into our kind of problem-solving process. And we can start to make sense and get a little bit more focus around the first steps that we need to do in order to get to that goal or get through that challenge that you're facing. And that's exactly what I want to help you with in our goal setting workshop that is starting January 1st. So we're going to go through a 5-day process together, and we're going to look at your own unique situation and kind of break each one of these steps down. And I'm really going to help you more kind of going through each one of these individual stages. So I really look forward to going through that process with you. I would love to have you join me. And you can go to crktrainingjournals.com to get signed up. We'll also throw the link down below for you. So I hope to see you there, and I'll see you in the new year.